How you doing, everyone? What's going on? I'm Colin, and this is the premiere episode of Beyond Impact Communications podcast. And this podcast is all about supporting you in being the best version of yourself with delivering your message and your purpose, your mission, whatever it is that you're trying to share and put out there to the marketplace with confidence and impact. And this is the new iteration of Coffee with Colin. As you knew, Coffee with Colin, I've had plenty of amazing guests over the past few years. And what I started to realize, and my guest is going to be able to speak more about this tonight, is that to be successful with anything, to really get your message out there, it requires it to be really niched down into a specific message and focused towards a specific audience. So that's what I'm trying to do here with Beyond Impact. And that's what, as I'm learning as I go here, this is all about just empowering you with all the insight that I'm learning to be able to share it with my audience so that you can take this knowledge and take it and put it into your businesses, into your podcast, into your speaking, whatever it is that you are doing to create more abundance and be able to reach your audience on a mass scale. And again, tonight, my guest for this premiere episode, I'm really excited because he is a guru and a master when it comes to marketing and getting a message out there to the marketplace. So before we get started with that, I just want to say thank you to all the viewers who have been watching Coffee with Colin over the years. And now that we are starting to create this reiteration of the Beyond Impact podcast, we are going to be doing some amazing events over the next few weeks and months. And I will be explaining more about what that would look like in at the end of the episode here. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring to your attention this sizzle reel of my guest, and then I'm going to introduce him. We're going to have an amazing conversation. As usual, feel free to type in your comments. And all of you out there on Facebook, on the Facebook platform and YouTube world and on LinkedIn, feel free to type in any questions you may have. What we are going to be talking tonight about is how to grow your business. We're going to be talking about speaking. We're going to be talking about how to grow your podcast and your audience. So all you small business owners out there, entrepreneurs and leaders, executives, you're going to want to pay attention to what we have to chat about tonight. But without further ado, I'm going to show you my guest's sizzle reel here. And here we go, Mr. Jeff Hayzlett.
All right. I have to say, first of all, that if you expect Americans to be loud, brash, and obnoxious, you've come to the right place.
Bloomberg contributor and marketing guru Jeff Hayzlett.
Jeff, what's the task?
You're going to create a Kodak mobile printing experience.
So what's your promise? So really have that, that elevator pitch down so you can be able to speak to it.
It's about the brand, and that's their brand right now. Their brand has to be a promise delivered.
So is Flashshop going to change the way brands use Snapchat?
I don't necessarily think so.
When do you know when you have clarity, and what confirmation do you seek to validate?
Well, that's a great question.
So why do you want to take that and make that digital?
There is still a need.
Being radically transparent, about being open and honest with everybody in your operation, talking about the things that maybe everybody should know.
If you're a big company, small company, I don't care. There's a customer, there's a performer in everything we do. So I spend most of my time talking about what the conditions of satisfaction are.
By the way, not everything's going to be perfect. In fact, when I stepped into Kodak and I started making the changes, and people said, well, what happens when we make a mistake? I said, well, let me ask you this question. Is anyone going to die? Because today, I want you to think about who you are, the kind of business that you are today versus what you can do.
All right. So as you can see, this guy is a rock star when it comes to the world of business. So Mr. Jeff Hayzlett, he's going to be speaking actually at the Premier Business Services business summit that we are going to be doing in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on December 12th. I'm actually emceeing this incredible event. And if you want to be a part of this, if you can't make it to Sioux Falls, we are offering the ability for you to buy virtual tickets for you to be able to join us. And you're not going to want to miss Jeff's keynote speech in the morning, because he's going to be just bringing the heat on the morning of December 12th. And without further ado, I want to introduce you and share with you who this amazing, incredible businessman is. He's the primetime television host of The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett and the executive perspectives on C-Suite TV. And he has a business podcast, and he's the host of All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett on the C-Suite Radio. He is a global business celebrity. I'm not sure if you saw, but he was actually on the Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump. He's a speaker, best-selling author, and chairman of the C-Suite Network. He's a well-traveled public speaker, the author of 4 best-selling business books that he's going to be sharing with us about. And he is also a leading business expert cited in Forbes and Success Magazine, to name a few. He shares his executive insight and commentary on television shows like you saw on Bloomberg, MSNBC, Fox Business, and the C-Suite TV. And he's a former Bloomberg contributing editor and primetime host. He's appeared, as I mentioned, as a celebrity guest judge on NBC Celebrity Apprentice with Donald Trump. And he is a turnaround architect of the highest order, a maverick marketer, and offers mentorship, corporate governance, and brand building to his clients. So, ladies and gents, please welcome to the stage Mr. Jeffrey Hayzlett.
Hey, thank you, man. Hey, you forgot to mention that the German bloggers once called me the Chuck Norris of marketing. I just remembered that. You sit there. I haven't seen those videos in a long time. So thanks for taking me down memory lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time to jump on here with us and share your incredible insight and knowledge when it comes to the world of business.
Well, I appreciate it. It's always a good time to talk about business. I love talking business all the time. I mean, I go to bed at night hoping I'll hurry up and sleep so I can hurry up and get up and get going early in the morning so I can get back to business. That's the way I am every day.
So you live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
I do. I live in Sioux Falls. I have a couple places elsewhere, but South Dakota is my main home. This is what we call our home. I'd much rather be here than any other place in the world, just because, I can look out my window right here. It's dark out right this minute, but normally I can look out and see the river. I got eagles. I've got otters. I've got mountain lions. I got a little bit of everything on our place, and I enjoy just watching every day.
Amazing. And you're born and raised in Sioux Falls?
No, I was not. I grew up in Rapid City, the western part of the state. My father was in the military, so we literally moved to a different Air Force base every single year growing up. And so we lived in South Dakota a couple times. When I was a teenager, my dad came back from the Vietnam War. My parents divorced, and my mother remarried a guy that I didn't get along with too well. And so I said, I'm going to go live with my dad because he's going back to South Dakota. And I just loved it there and moved back. And, by the time I was 16, I was out on my own, doing my own stuff and, mowing lawns, making money, working at McDonald's, doing everything I could just to eat and put food on the table. And South Dakota's just been my place. I wound up going to college in the eastern part in Sioux Falls, met my wife, and decided this was the place for me for the rest of my life.
But you've since expanded and you've got offices all over the country.
Yeah. Well, all over the world. I've bought and sold over 250 companies in my career, about 25 billion in transactions. And I've run companies or been part of companies that, on my last big company, I was the chief marketing officer of Eastman Kodak, of which we were doing about 187 billion. I was managing a $17 billion marketing and sales budget. Had about 7,500 marketing people in my department, when you look at it, but one of the 5 officers of the company, and just had a blast. And, so I've done a little bit of everything.
Incredible. And so you'd say your area of expertise started with marketing.
Yeah.
And
sales. I love to sell. I mean, in marketing, marketing is the inception of the idea all the way through customer satisfaction. So very important to kind of keep in mind, my job is to, build brands. A brand is nothing but a promise delivered. And so, but I love selling. I mean, it doesn't do you any good to build brand value if you can't sell something.
Yeah, exactly. And, I've only been in the world of entrepreneurship now, I would say, for the past 6 years. ever since I wrote my first book, when I wrote this thing, my publisher said, "Oh, you're going to write this thing." And, even with the following that I have on Instagram and Facebook from my movies and TV shows, what I quickly discovered was that doesn't matter. I mean, that will maybe get you in the door a little bit, but if you really want to have brand sustainability, it requires you to start to really understand the world of marketing and sales. And so I've been taking these marketing courses and watching these webinars, and especially now with the world of digital marketing, a lot of it has to do with just placing your understanding the different platforms and being able to target your audience based on whichever platform that you're marketing on, knowing where your audience is, but then how to craft that message that's going to resonate with your audience. And so I guess my first question for you is, when it comes to the world of marketing and sales, one of the things that I learned from someone was that no matter what you do, whether you're a real estate agent or an author or a speaker, unless you know how to market your product, you're dead in the water. So when it comes to what's that?
I said all the time. I can remember sitting one time with one of the smartest guys I know. He was the number 11th employee at Adobe, left that company, retired. We did a company together in the 90s. And he came up to me and he was kind of bragging. He said, you wouldn't have a job if it weren't for me, because he was the, chief technology officer, the person that came up to him. And I said, I said, quite frankly, I'm going to say the word, you wouldn't have shit without me. Don't you ever forget it. Because what do you mean? I said, it ain't nothing until I sell it.
Exactly.
So, and that's what you have to learn. You could build the best mousetrap, but if you don't have somebody helping you, bring it to market and sell it and get the greatest value for that particular item, product, or service, you really don't have anything. You just got a great story. And, great stories don't put food on the table. They're great to tell around the table, but in order to, pay for the food on the table, you got to sell something. You got to work hard at it. You got to bring in the revenue, and that's an important job. And you were so right about talking about how to craft not just the message, but how to craft it for that particular medium, for that particular customer. So many times we like to say, well, I'm only posting stuff on Instagram. I'm only doing this. When you forget, you've got to go to where your customers are, right? You have to, I might like LinkedIn better. I might like Facebook better, but I still have to go to Instagram. I still have to go to other medium platforms, social media, or to TV, to digital, online, to email, to maybe even to direct mail marketing, to advertising of some way, shape, or form, because I've got to reach the audience that wants to be listening to me. So I got to find out where they're at and go to them.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the world of business, we are going to be doing this Premier Business Services Summit on December 12th in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And this summit is geared towards the absolute beginning phases of starting a business if someone has an idea and they want to turn it into an actual viable business, to people who are currently running their businesses and how to create more efficiencies in running their business, and then to the exit phase of selling their business on the back end of it all. If we could just start at the very beginning for someone who has an idea, for my audience members out there who may have an idea to with regards to a product or a service, what would you say to someone who's looking to start their business from like ground zero right now, from just an idea? What would you say is what's some advice you would give someone to?
The biggest thing I would tell somebody is to find an idea that solves a problem for somebody. Because if you're solving problems, then you've got something that's very valuable in terms of it helps people in some way, shape, or form. It's difficult to find them that solve them for an entire ecosystem, but find it for somebody. And that way you can be able to package something, because there's going to be great value there for someone. And so that's the first thing. And then the other thing is to look at the market and truly understand the scope of the market. I've had so many entrepreneurs who come to me and say, I'm the only one doing it. Well, if you're the only one doing it, then typically it's not a big issue. It's not a big problem. You want to find something where there's going to be competition. Now, the competition might be another competitor, or the competition might be because it's very difficult to do. So there's a lot of different things that you can weigh into that. And you want to find a niche. And by the way, I love niches. You said this earlier, but riches in the niches. I mean, that's a real phrase because it's a real issue and you're solving some real cool things. So I love those things because there's usually a lot more money in those niches than there are in terms of broad, open, wide kinds of services. So that's number one, is figure out what problem are you solving. And a lot of us don't spend enough time with that. We go talk to our mother, we go talk to our friends, and everybody will tell you it's a wonderful thing. But and then the other thing I would say with that, Colin, which is great, is go sell it to somebody. Show me you can sell it to somebody, because if you can sell it to somebody, now you got something, rather than somebody sitting around, giving you advice. And by the way, advice is terrible because advice is given by people who've never done it before. You want somebody to give you counsel. Someone's been there over and over and over and been there, done that, because you're getting good counsel from someone on what to do and what not to do.
What would you say is some of the best advice you've gotten from any of your mentors?
Listen. Shut up. Shut your mouth and listen. Because a lot of times we'll talk ourselves into a story. And I think listening is probably the most underused skill by any executive, right? And so listening is probably one of the best things that you could possibly do. The other thing is roll your sleeves up and really get into it. And I was at Eastman Kodak and we were selling printers. The team would tell me, Mr. Hayzlett, you don't know this. It doesn't work this way. It doesn't work this way. Well, I used to go to Best Buy, put on a blue shirt, and sell the printers on the floor. Let me tell you what, I'd hear what customers had to say. I'd hear how I had to compete against HP or Epson or somebody else, and I would know exactly what was going on. I'd be talking to employees, and they're telling me the issues that, what are the objections they're having to overcome and so forth. So a lot of times I think it's important for you to, really roll up those sleeves and really get dirty.
And what would you say when, let's say, the leadership of a company that you're working for, you feel is maybe not being a good steward for where the company is going? Because you look at Kodak, who actually invented the digital camera,
right.
And for whatever reason, they felt like you probably could speak to this better than I could talk about this. But from what my understanding is, they were focusing more on film, not thinking that digital cameras would actually be what they were today. So
yeah, Jim Collins writes about it in his book, and I can't remember which one, but it's one of those times where hubris of your success, when you believe your own story. And that's the case. The digital camera was discovered in 1975, Christmas Eve. Steve Sasson went into a room and took a photograph of a photograph with a big blue box, which is a big camera about this size. And the camera used to sit on my desk for a while because I used to love to have people see it, because that's what we passed up. Because you imagine what it was like for him to walk into an executive like myself or others there and say, hey, look, I've just discovered this new way of taking photographs. It's digital. Wait, how much film does it take? Oh my God, it doesn't take film. What are you, nuts? This is what we are. We make this little box that's the most recognizable box in the world. It's the number one logo in the world. It's the most lovable brand in the world. It's the most emotional technology. I mean, we make a little roll of film that's got 90% margins, and you're telling me we're going to do away with this? What are you, freaking nuts? I mean, that's what they would have said, rather than saying, well, what are we at our core? Our core was we help people to make, manage, and move images, information. We were an emotional technology company. We had Kodak moments. We had the only product that people would actually run back into a burning building to save. And you think about it, that's what we did. That's the connection we had. So they pushed it away and they pushed it aside, and they pawned it off on Apple with all the grace of an anaconda eating a rabbit. I mean, they just had massive strength, and didn't realize it until the camera became embedded in one of the most personal devices in the history of the world. And now at the same time, you don't know is that the technology that's inside this camera, and all cameras, is from Kodak. They're one of the leading top 3 companies in the world in terms of patents, but yet couldn't, see that was the connection. And that happens sometimes when you're so focused in on, no, we're a film company. And they were never a film company. They were that emotional technology company. And by the time myself and many others got there, it was still too late. Our job was to slow it down as much as we can, and can we turn it? And then, of course, 2008 hit, and the writing was on the wall. Some of us stayed for as long as we could, because you just really cared about the people, you cared about the company, you cared about its heritage. And so for a lot of us, it was a big job for us, and tried to do the best we could. And we held it up for a number of years, but it really, truly changed.
When it comes to the success and viability of a company, would you say that it's more important for a company to be mission focused or profit focused?
Well, to me, it's always mission. I mean, we focus. I'm running the C-suite network right now, and even though we're profitable, we're always mission focused, even if that means giving up margin, because then we know the problem that we're rushing to solve every single day. Everybody should know what that is. And so sometimes that means you give up margin. Sometimes you make a little bit better margin, but in the long run, by doing what we need to do, we'll gain over a length of time, and we'll gain with scale. Even today, we have half the number of employees we did 2 years ago. And yet we're doing more revenue, and we're making more money than we did 4 years ago, so in 2 years ago and last year, and so we have double digit, near triple digit growth just by focusing in on that mission. So I ask myself, when we see things or when we talk about things in the company, I'll say something like, okay, they designed like today we designed a brand new one sheet on the company. And I said, well, is it C-suite? And everybody knew what I meant. Does it look like C-suite? Does it look like us? Does it feel like us? Does somebody pick that up and they see it, they touch it, they taste it? Do they see C-suite? Well, you want to be able to have that. So mission focused in terms of, it's so ingrained in the company. So, and the other thing I think that's important for most companies, if you want to be truly successful, and that's about values, you put your values first. I talk about hero companies, hero leaders, that I believe, put values, put people above profit, for instance. Those companies do more. They gross more revenue. They make more money. They have employees who are engaged, when 53% of employees can't even tell you the company mission or vision. And then they have vendors that want to do business with them. And, it's amazing to be able to see.
What advice would you give to CEOs and other leaders out there who have employees and are trying to create maximum profitability, but also include their team with what it is that they're doing and inspire them with the mission that they've created for the company? Because it seems like so many companies now are, like the Walmarts and the big conglomerates. It seems like the people that work for these companies don't feel like they're really a part of the company and feel like they're being valued in these companies. I can see when you go to some of these bigger corporations where it seems like you're just a number in a big, gigantic conglomerate company. And I think we're starting to see a shift in the areas where people are really now looking for companies that care about their employees, their customer, and offering tailored services to their clients. Is this the kind of advice that you give to the companies that you consult with?
Oh, all the time. The key thing I think for a CEO or leaders in the company, your job is not to be the smartest person in the room, because you're not. Your job is to be the most strategic person in the room. So the first thing I would tell most people is be transparent. And be as transparent as possible. Like, whether you're a small business or a large business, the bigger the business, it's more open, meaning everybody knows more than anything. Smaller business, you can hide a little bit more. But at the same time, if you have, things coming through the back door that are on cash delivery, which means you got to pay cash, that probably means you burned your credit a little bit and things aren't going too well and you owe a lot of people. So therefore, the businesses are going, I'm not giving you a line of credit. You got to pay now. Well, employees know that. They know that. So why not be transparent about it? And by the way, I can give you a perfect example. Many, many decades ago, I had a print shop and I was really poor on cash. I mean, the first year I made money. The next 2 years I lost money. I was bound to determine after that third year that I needed to make money from the business, because that's what it really was about. And, I remember I didn't tell my manager about it. but I was managing it from afar. But my manager thought, wow, he was going to help me out by getting a great buy on paper, and he bought a truckload of paper. I mean, he about put me under because he spent so much money. Now, we would go through that paper, but I was taking the paper as I could afford it and pay for it, right? And he thought he was doing a great job by getting me this great discount, which was wonderful, but I just couldn't afford to pay for the paper, for the truckload of paper. So, that's when I learned I needed to share information with my employees to say, hey, Tim, brother, thank you very much. That was wonderful, but let me tell you what that does to us, right? So I think that's one piece. The second thing I would also, Colin, have everybody focus on as a leader is stay as close to your downline as possible. Stay as close to the front line as you possibly can. Today, we're separated by too many layers, and we make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And I think it's getting back to people want to work with companies that have good values, right? And the leaders live those values and that they have a connection with those people. And I think we've lost some of that. And as a result, we're seeing CEOs getting paid, exorbitant amounts of money compared to multiples of the people that work in the company, the average worker. And I don't think that's what it was intended to do, right? I think we have a responsibility as business leaders to work like a family and to work like a community. And so those are the things I would focus the most on. Transparency in terms of information and sharing. You don't have to share every detail, but you need to share the important ones for people to be able to do their job, because nobody walks into their work every day and says, I can't wait to be stupid. Now, there's a few of those, right? We all know there's a few of them. We see them. We know who they are. We know their names. But by and large, most people want to do a great job and get paid for it. And they want to be appreciated for that job. And so my next piece of it is then to stand there and be as close to those people as possible. And what can I, when I was many years ago, worked at a construction company during the summer for a job. And I remember the foreman coming over and says, Jeff, I'm going to ask you at the end of the week, what could I do better to help you do your job? Now you're going to tell me that I should pay you more. Okay. That's your one give. After that, you're going to have to come up with a better answer. And every week he would come to me and say, how can I help you do your job better? And that was a great lesson in leadership. And that made me think about the business. That made me think about how I could do a better job. That made me think about how I can improve. And if they would let me do this or let me do this or, break through this, this wall, so to speak, in terms of, I didn't know I could do that, meaning I thought I had to ask permission for it when most of the time you don't.
And when it comes to leadership, a big part of being a great leader is being a great communicator and being able to convey your message with inspiration and focus. You've been a speaker now for a big part of your career. Can you share with us, for all of our audience members out there who are looking to start getting on stages or who are currently doing public speaking and getting paid to speak on stages at corporate and organizational events, can you give some advice on what are some of the most important things to be aware of when you're getting up on a stage and sharing your message with an audience?
Well, remember who you're talking to. I spend a great deal of time. I keynote hundreds of times a year, Hall of Fame speaker. And I now make more money by speaking for free than I do sometimes speaking for a fee, because of the way in which I can interact with the audience and how we utilize the audience to be able to sell something or to get them to buy other things that I might sell. But the way to do that is by having a great story to tell, right? Or a great number of stories with great lessons in them. But to do that, you have to know your audience and you have to spend some time in understanding, okay, Colin, what is it that you want me to do for you at that meeting? I mean, you and I are speaking at Sarah's event, and we, of course, want to serve. And so that's the best thing a speaker can possibly do, is serve. And that is, how can I help make this experience the best thing and knock it out? And I spend time with the organizers of the event to say, what's your, what theme, what is it you want to accomplish? How do you want to accomplish that? Are there things I should avoid, in terms of talking about? Are you making announcements that, these are things that most speakers don't do. Many times, I see speakers showing up 10 minutes before the speech with their thumb drive. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to be the least obtrusive thing in that organizer's event. And so I always, make sure there's flights between me and in case I get canceled. So I never miss an event. I make sure that when I get there, I call, and typically, it's amazing how many times I call the organizer and say, I just want to let you know I'm in. And they said, you're the first speaker in my entire career who's ever called to let me know that you're here, and which is amazing. So again, you want to serve your audience. You want to serve the people hiring you. And so if you do that, you get invited back. I'm invited back by about 40% of the groups the following year or within 2 years. And that's amazing. So I don't have to go sell again. I don't have to go promote again. I got them calling back because they had such a great experience. Or they, like you, Colin, they have you come back and be the MC, which is a great gig, and a great way to be able to do it. I mean, we like to think it's hard, but it's not that hard. It's a nice gig to have because you get to study, you get to introduce people without all the responsibility, but you still have to do a good job. You have to practice and do all those things. But I find serving people is the best thing you can do, whether you're selling something or you're giving information. But that, the other thing is for a speaker though, is be good, practice, get to a point where you can do it, we'll do it without slides, with slides, whatever you want to do, but be professional. I mean, I've done events where I've been in India keynoting and the power went out 48 times during an hour and a half keynote, And these people are rushing up, to me, and the lights are out, and they're trying to get the PowerPoint started again. I'm going, just stop. I'm a professional. I can do this without the slides. Okay, let me talk. Well, we don't have a microphone. We have no sound. I said, then I'll talk louder. Okay, everybody scooch up. Let's go. You learn to accommodate. Adapt, change, or die. That's how we live.
What would you say are some tips for when you first get up onto the stage to connect with your audience?
Oh, I think it's good to make a personal connection so that they, you got people back in the back, they got their arms crossed, you got all types of personalities there, and you've got to break through that. And you have to show them that, listen, yeah, I might be the keynote or I might be the big guy here, in terms of this, but let me show you how stupid I am so you can connect with me. So I always like to tell a little bit of humbling kinds of things, a story or two that they can identify with them, but also in that story. And those are signature stories that only I can tell, And so I say them in a way that's self-deprecating, but says this isn't going to be a normal, ordinary speaker. You saw that from the sizzle reel. That sizzle reel was either in Italy or I think maybe in Norway. And I'm speaking to this big, huge convention of people. And of course, what do they think with a guy like me? Now I look back at those videos and go, oh my gosh, that was 50 pounds ago. And I'm much thinner now. I'm much different. But yet, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 270 pounds, and former rugby player, blah, blah, blah. And, and I'm on stage at a European event. They think I'm going to be a loud, obnoxious American. Okay, give it to them. Then just admit it. I'm going to be that times 10. And then they laugh. And now I'm a cowboy. And so I'm going to be cowboy on your ass. And so, just go with it. And so, do something that will get them like, oh my gosh, this is not going to be your normal kind of thing. And so that opening I think is critical for you in terms of making that connection. I tell a couple stories. I tell one about my wife and the first time I met my wife's great grandmother, and it's a line that brings down the house, and it's a true story, and it's a small story. And then I talk about, I was once struck by lightning, and I talked and weave that into a story that then turns into a story about Kodak and what they missed and how they missed it. And that whole transition then leads to my next piece of the story, the beginning of my speech. And so I've just done that since now for, 20 years, the Kodak thing being added in the last 15 years, but it's just a nice evolution of the way it's done. The other piece, Colin, I think a lot of people would find it surprising. You know, Hall of Fame speaker with, oh my gosh, Art Linkletter and most people won't know, but Ronald Reagan and Colin Powell and, some unbelievable Zig Ziglar and some unbelievable speakers over the years. But you will find that those speakers, like myself and what I would consider other good speakers, is we watch a lot of speakers. We listen to great speakers. And we always, continually learn. And I think that's, if you want to be really good at what you do, you're continually learning and tweaking. My speech is largely the same, and it has been for about 15 years, but it's had 3 or 5 different names to it, but I change it. I'm constantly changing it. And I'm trying a joke here. I'm trying a line here. I'm raising my voice here. I'm dropping down here. I'm yelling here. And it's never the same until I'm always looking like a comedian. I guess I hear comedians are very similar, and probably actors, this too. And you're trying different things to see what you get. And then you, oh, that was good. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to use that one next time and come back. And then there's been sometimes, just to be humbled by this all, is I'll tell the story out of content or out of sequence. And then I'll realize, oh my gosh, I forgot that part. So I got to loop it all the way back, come back and grab that piece and put it back over here, because it's going to affect the punchline. It's going to affect the closing line. So you should be getting good about the way you do it. Now, there are speakers who memorize their stuff. I'm not one of those speakers. I'm one who, by the familiarity of talking it through all the time, I won't say I memorize it, but I follow that outline.
Do you have like some bullet points that are the key topics that you're going to be touching upon in your
talk? I
like
that. I don't have to. I do like that, because I think it's good to just speak, but I also believe strongly in visuals. Visuals are good. They're good grounding. And the reason I like that is because we're in a very tactile society, meaning we pull out our phones, and so I find people taking pictures of the slides all the time, and all they have is one word on it, like transparency. That's one of the lines that I have. Fear is another line that I have, and they'll take a picture of the word fear. It just says fear. And so I do like those, because I think it grounds people to that comment, and then I see them tweet them. I see them post them on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then something typically about themselves, about what they heard. So it's always good. So I do like those. And you got to be thinking also as a speaker, how can I present something in such a way that they can take a picture of it and then share it socially, right? And it's not just of me, but of the message, of the way in which I want to tell it. And so that's how I kind of look at things, is how can you, I'm lazy. I like to step and repeat things. I like to do it once, and then it gets repeated often. And so I try to do that for everybody else and give them the things that they like to have.
Can you give us a little preview of what your talk is going to be at the Premier Business Services?
Oh yeah,
Summit?
I'm excited. This is, I rarely get to speak at home in a home crowd, because somebody once said, why don't you speak more here in Sioux Falls or in South Dakota? I said, well, too many people see me naked at the gym. So, you're never an expert in your local community. It's just the way it is. So,
yeah.
And most people, even in Sioux Falls, I'm known as Tammy Hayzlett's husband, because she's really big in the church and everybody knows her, and she's the nice one. So, and not that many people know me here, because, you see me at Hy-Vee grocery store with a baseball cap and shorts. I mean, I'd much rather be home on the back of a tractor than anything in the world, or at my granddaughter's basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever else they're playing. And
sure.
So that's it. But no, my speech is going to be about think big, act bigger. And it's about the rewards of being relentless. I literally from my home can see Iowa from my house, and so I thought I was a big guy back I made my first million by the time I was 26. And I thought I was just hot, what. And so until I realized, hey, I can do this in another city. I can do this outside of my city. I don't just have to be in Sioux Falls. I can do this in Iowa. And then I figured out I could do this in Chicago. Then I finally figured out I can do this in London. I can do this in Tokyo. And that broadened my thinking. And, no matter how big you are, there's always someone bigger. So what I do in Main Street in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the only difference between that and somebody in Wall Street is just the numbers of zeros. That's it. And so I learned that at a very early age. And so I started swinging a lot bigger and, a lot harder and a lot faster and with more frequency after that. And so, by the time I was 40, I was in a Fortune 100 company as one of the top officers of the company. And I bought and sold hundreds of businesses in my 30s, billions of dollars in transactions, and I figured it out pretty quick. And so, and it was all about just thinking bigger. I could do this somewhere else. And, I was a lobbyist for a number of years in state legislatures, and I did a lot of political work. And then I realized, no, I can go do this same stuff for corporations and make a lot more money. And it's the same thing. It's just selling a box of soap, a cure for disease, or a political candidate. It's all in the packaging.
Speaking of political candidates, you worked with Mr. Donald Trump on the Celebrity Apprentice. Can you share with us a little bit about why you think Trump is so successful with his following and his ability to connect with his audience?
Well, first of all, I was a judge on that show for 3 years and was on about 9 episodes that they got me on film. And it was pretty unique. And so help develop the show as part of the way we wanted to roll out a product. Called him, got him on the phone. And what I like about him, I can tell you what I like and what I don't like, right? Because I think with every person that we know in life, there's good things and there's things we don't like. That's okay. That's life. So you just got to make one. We got to make sure it's like the teeter-totter. One side should overweigh the other side, and hopefully it overweighs the bad side. The good overcomes the bad. That's what you hope. He has a unique ability to weave a story. And I wrote my last book, The Hero Factor. One of the things I wrote is that there's something good about Donald Trump. And people got really mad at me and wrote nasty notes. And I said, no, there's something good. And what he does is he makes you pick a side. And so I think that's a good service because it makes you pick a side. And so I think that's a good thing. I tell you what was interesting to watch him, and I've known him for a long time now and worked with him on not outside of the television stuff on some other business, is his ability to see something and then immediately change over here. And let me give you a good example. How many times did you watch the show and he said, Colin, I think I'm going to fire you. And then you would say, well, Mr. Trump, you shouldn't fire me. You should fire Hayzlett. And here's why. And he'd switch like that because you told a better story. You made it more convincing. You showed him something he didn't know. And once he found that out, it tied back to something internally that he said, yep, I'm going to agree with you. Hayzlett, you're fired. And I thought that was a unique opportunity. You don't see a lot of executives who do that. All right. And that could be good or bad, right? Can be. You would hope if their values are correct, it's a good thing. And by and large, I think that did him well. The other thing I think you have to say about that guy is he doesn't give up. I mean, come on. He never, he's been shot. They've took him to court. He's been found this, he's had this, he's had this, he's had this, he's had this. How many divorces he had with how many kids with different wives? I mean, all the things that are part of it. I always tell everybody, he's a friend of mine, but he's batshit crazy. And, there's a lot of truth to that. You can take it however you want. But I think that's what appeals to most people is that he's a little crazy, and I think they're just fed up with it. And just, that's where it stands right now. There's clearly, come on. Even if you ask me about better marketers, there's clearly better marketers. There's clearly better speakers. There's clearly this, right? And I think where there's lots of other choices, they're just not there right now. Yeah. He's, like him or not, he's a master at connecting with audiences and connecting with them on a deep core level of being a voice for, I think, a lot of people who feel that no one is speaking up
for this big segment of our country that feels that they've been forgotten and been ignored. And I think he's really tapped into the zeitgeist of being able to bring a voice to a lot of people. And that's one of the reasons why he's so successful.
Yeah, and most people would look at me, Colin, and think, well, Hayzlett's a Republican, he's a business person, blah, blah, blah. I worked with Trump. And that's not the case. I was a former staffer for George McGovern. I was a former staffer for Tom Daschle. I've run Senate campaigns, mostly for everyone. 99% of them have been Democrats and one Republican, okay? Because the Republican was a very, very good friend of mine and one of my 4 mentors that I would think. And so you don't walk away from a mentor, you support a mentor. And I will tell you something I told people back in 2016 when he ran the first time, and I would get interviews because they would send people to do interviews of what he's like. And I would tell people, I know people that have worked for him for decades and they're working for him and they're loyal. And you can't be an asshole and have somebody work for you for that long, right? That's my opinion. And then the other thing is you look at his children who are fairly well-adjusted, good kids, right? And they're with their dad. They're not with their moms. They're with their dad. And that says something. And I said, you don't see that very often. And that's something.
Yeah. So let's do some real-time consulting here.
Sure.
If you hired by Trump and Kamala, what advice would you give both of them to be better at connecting or resonating or creating a more focused message to their audience to sway people from one side to the other?
Well, with Trump, it's real simple. I would tell him to be more presidential. If he acted more presidential and, wasn't a pit bull, in a fight, then I would, but some of that we do love, but I think most people love, but by and large, I don't want to go home and explain them to my wife every night. And I think that's what most people would say. If he would just act presidential and more of that, I think when he does that, he does a much better job and he represents this country. That's one. For Harris, I would tell her to outline a freaking plan, right? Outline it. Here's my goal. Here's where I'm going. Here's my vision. I'm going to take you there. Not all this other stuff. And nobody, if you're defending your past, you've already lost. If I have to defend my past actions in business, you're going, look, a lot of entrepreneurs are out there and everybody would say, oh, I'm afraid of failing. Let's be clear. You're going to fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. It isn't about failing fast. It's about winning fast because you're going to fail. And the same thing holds true with government. The same thing holds true with leadership, in everything we do. We're going to fail. The key is, people ask me all the time, Colin, in interviews like this, what's your biggest failure? And I say, I don't know. I haven't done it yet. What I mean by that is there's a bigger one out there. Same thing with successes. I forget most of those, quite frankly, because I'm on to the next thing. Because, I care about learning new things. I care about having fun. I care about building wealth for me and my family as much as I can. So for Harris, it'd be about what's the vision? I don't know what that is. And I'm not trying to be critical of either one of them, right? I'm just trying to be transparent, in saying how I feel. And by the way, it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's how I feel.
Yeah, no, it's really good assessment. I agree with you on both. And when it comes to share your message and connecting with an audience, we were talking earlier about podcasting, and there's so many podcasts out there nowadays. For my audience members out there who have podcasts or who are looking to start one, what would you say is some advice you would give to anyone who has a podcast who's looking to start it? Because you, with your C-suite network, you have a platform where you've got 75 different shows.
That's 76 TV shows, over 450 podcasts. By this time next year, we'll be at 4x of those. Okay, that's our goal, and we're on target to do that. So if you look at podcasts, I always say, oh, there's so many podcasts. No, it's not even close. In North America, there's 650 business podcasts, 650,000 business podcasts right now. If you look at podcasts as a human life, we're like a young teenager. We're not even close to maturity, not even close to where it's going to be in terms of revenue, of listenership, and so forth. And it's also morphing. What's a podcast? Well, this is a podcast, but it's also a TV show. We can make this into a TV show. These two boxes right here, that's a TV show as well, or a video show of some kind, whatever that's going to be. Now, I do tell people 24, the magic number, because that's what broadcast is. It's 24 minutes. 2 minutes of commercials, 8 minutes of content, 2 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes. There you 8 minutes, 2 more minutes, boom, starts it all over again for a half-hour show. 24 means 48 minutes in a full hour. So there's rules to learn, and you're not going to change the rules. So capture customer behavior, capture behavior in terms of fulfilling the content. You're going to say, oh, no, everybody wants short content. Bullshit. When was the last time all of you went home and you binge watch Yellowstone or Downton Abbey or something, right? Whatever it is, if it's good content, you'll watch it. But the cool thing is that if you want to get your message across, you want to be the authority, and that's the key for the future, is you have to become the thought leader in your category. Whether you're selling pens, whether you're selling razor blades, or you're selling consulting or training or solving someone's problem, you got to be the thought leader. If you're in St. Louis, Missouri, and you're a dry cleaner, there are 119 other dry cleaners in St. Louis. And to be able to compete with the other 119 dry cleaners, you don't want to just be buying search engine optimization, because you're going to continue to drive the prices of that search up and up and up and up. That's what Google does to you. All due respect to Google, that's how they got to be where they are today, because they've learned how to rig the system during this. The best way to get around that is by creating content. You have to become a podcaster or TV show. You have to become content leads to community. Community leads to commerce. You have to become the doctor of spots. You have to show people that you can get spots out of anything, and I'm going to show you the secrets. And by showing you the secrets, you're still not going to do it. Like, I know how to cut my lawn. I'm really good at it, but I am not mowing my lawn when a guy will do it for me for a fraction of the cost of my time and effort to do it. And I'd rather sit on my porch drinking scotch, watching what he's done afterwards, right? So that's what podcasting and television is about telling the story. Great content leads to a great community of building fans and customers and being able to interact. And then from that leads to commerce. And that's the new game for the future. You have to become a media company.
What would you say is the focus for when you start a podcast? Is it to, would you say most people start a podcast to sell their product, or is it to monetize the content that they're creating on these platforms?
That should be the outcome. That should be the outcome. The outcome should be those measurements. The measurements like that. The real thing should be giving great content and serving other people with X, Y, or Z. That's what you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to build it and no one's going to come. You're going to end up being a baseball field in the middle of Iowa. Who cares? All right. But if you build great content and you present great stories, if you help people to solve problems and teach them different things. So you want education as part of it. So people learn and want to be a part of understanding what it is you have to offer or what the story is. From that, they get excited. They'll evangelize. Right. And so, and with that, they'll become more engaged. The 4 E's. I call it the 4 E's. And so by doing that, they'll buy your products. They'll get it. They know what you're doing. If you're giving great content, they're going to know what you're doing. I mean, they already learned from us what we can do for them, whether it's marketing, sales, speeches, MC, occasionally an acting a thing or a commercial. I'm sure if somebody puts the money down, you're going to jump in it if it's the right kind of product and right kind of thing. So the same thing for me as well. You know, so I mentioned I'm on board. Someone's going to call me and say, "Hey, Jeff, I got a board. I started this new company. Oh, what's your name? DocuSign? Oh my gosh, yes, I like you." You know, that's how it happens. All right. And I don't have to go looking for it. I present it, lay it out there. And when the time is right, you know, people will ask you and do it. And you don't have to be obtrusive about it.
Mm-hmm. And as we wrap up here, and I appreciate your time here tonight, Jeff, how can people get in touch with you, and what platforms are you on so that people can start watching more of the content that you're putting out there?
Well, go to csuitenetwork.com, c-suitenetwork.com. You can find me there. You can find me, Jeffrey Hayzlett, anywhere that you want, pretty much everywhere. I'm on everything but TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. Sometimes you got to draw the line and say, I'm not doing that shit. Okay. Now, but if you're on it, it's not a judgment. Love you, but it's just not my thing. Right.
Well, probably not going to be around for much longer.
Well, exactly. And some of us have, like, I'm fighting the Chinese on a lot of other things with some policy and some other things. Remember that I'm used to be in the government, and I'm part of a committee that's fighting what they're doing on the electronic side. So anyway, there's some unfair advantages by that particular country and what they do. I mean, most people don't know, when you travel to that country as a business person, I don't take a phone. I don't take a computer. They're listening everywhere, the little things like that, but nonetheless, but you can find me, just look up Hayzlett, Hayzlett. You can find me on LinkedIn, find me on Twitter, find me on Instagram, wherever you are, I'm probably going to be there as well. And if you reach out to me, I'll get right back to you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Jeff. And I'm excited to hear your keynote on December 12th at the Business Summit. And before I take off, I like to ask my guests the question that really means a lot to me. And that question is, what, Jeff, inspires you the most in life?
Right now, it's my grandchildren. And what can I do to make those little girls be as successful that they can possibly be? So I will knock people over. I will build them up. I will try to give them everything that they can. Of course, they'll earn it because that's the way it should be done. And they'll got to go through struggles and everything else. But I want to do everything to make sure that their life is better than my life was growing up, and that they get to have their hopes and dreams and aspirations come true.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks again, Jeff. Have a great evening. I'll see you December 12th.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Take care. All right, ladies and gents, thanks for being here and thanks for tuning in. Thanks for Jeff again for your time. And it was a great conversation. I appreciate that and looking forward to your keynote. And again, for those of you who are interested in hearing Jeff's keynote on December 12th, you can get tickets at Premier Business Services website at the event tab. All you got to do is click on there. And if you want to hear more about what Jeff has to say, you can go to hayzlett.com. And it's going to be an amazing, amazing day. I know it. For any entrepreneur or business owner out there, it's going to be an awesome opportunity for you to connect with other like-minded individuals and for you to just get some tips, some insights, some strategies on how to level up your business in all regards, from marketing to sales to culture to communication strategies and techniques. And with the Beyond Impact podcast that I'm creating here, as Jeff mentioned, it's all about being of service and providing something to someone where I liked what he talked about, where you are the expert in the space, you are the authority. And so whatever it is that you are doing out there, I would like to encourage you to take on Jeff's advice in the sense of being, just keep educating yourself and keep leveling up. And it is so important to keep doing this. And being of service. And I really liked what Jeff talked about in terms of great leadership is being down in the trenches with the people that are really doing a lot of the work that is creating the most success of the company, and just really being in their environment, being in what I like to say on the other side, or in the listening of your audience. And as someone who is doing more motivational speaking and getting up onto stages, I've really been studying and perfecting my craft. And this is what's really exciting about what I'm doing too, because as I learn, I get to share all this information with you and get to talk to amazing individuals who can share that information with us, like Jeff. So for those of you who are looking to continue to level up and to continue to grow and aspire to step into the greatness that we all know that we have within ourselves, I would encourage you not to let that limiting mindset beliefs get in the way of you accomplishing your dreams and your goals. No matter where you are, no matter what obstacles may stand in your way, there is a way and there's a will to make it happen, because it's all about just surrounding yourself with the people who support you and who believe in you. But the only way that they're going to do that is if you believe in yourself first. So it's about really looking inward, finding out and identifying what your core value systems are, who your audience is, what you want to do to be able to solve whatever problems that they have, as Jeff mentioned tonight, and then just doing what you love to do. Because when you do what you love, that's what radiates and vibrates and creates abundance and really makes people want to work with you. When you love what you do, it shows, and there's no substitution for just being genuine and authentic with whatever it is that you're doing. So that's it, ladies and gents. Thanks for being with me tonight on my premiere episode. Can't wait to see you guys on the next one. And take care for now. Have a great week.